Hello, hi there. Welcome to the Guiding Voice podcast series, The Guiding Voice for a Better Future. This podcast is to help professional students, IT employees, and entrepreneurs to shape their careers. So, dear listeners, in every episode, we interact with industry experts or leaders or coaches or academicians to drive some insightful conversations that will help our audience learn great things. Also, we share an interesting trivia or fun fact about the IT world or technology towards the end. Thank you for tuning in. This is Naveen and I'm with my co-host Sudhakar. So folks, if you follow the current digital transformation world, after this Mac, social, mobile, analytics and cloud, most of the discussions are centered around artificial intelligence, machine learning, and also how the robots are taking over the routine, mundane activities by automating the knowledge gained through these technologies. Yes, you guessed it right. I'm talking about RPA, the robotic process automation technology. And there are n number of robotic process automation technologies available in the market. But today we are going to focus on UiPath. It is a robotic process automation tool that is used primarily for Windows desktop automation, and it is used to automate repetitive and redundant tasks to eliminate the human intervention in order to achieve efficiencies and also drive effectiveness across various different organizations, save dollars to the businesses. So today our focus will be on the journey into UiPath, and we are pleased to welcome Mukesh to our show.
Mukesh Kala is a senior RPA developer having an experience of 7 years in IT industry. He is passionate about RPA technology, has a YouTube channel dedicated to UiPath, and recently contributed to the UiPath community by publishing a tutorial on UiPath Official Academy. Mukesh loves to give back to society at large and specifically to the RPA community. Mukesh, welcome to our show.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the introduction and the invitation. It's a pleasure being here.
So Mukesh, let's jump right into it. Can we talk a bit about your career journey? How did you get into this RPA space?
I started my career as a .NET developer. I started with a company called Atos, that is Centil. Now there I got an opportunity to work for some time in C# .NET. After working some time in the C# world, I shifted to Deloitte. In Deloitte, I got opportunity to think and learn something about RPA, and I found that, okay, this is something interesting and we can use RPA. So I started my automation journey by automating something for myself. Then I started looking for the projects in the firm where I can contribute. And then I totally shifted my career from C# to RPA developer because this was the need and I felt fascinated about the RPA technology.
That is great. The journey of C# into RPA. And I like the way you planned and you came into this robotic process automation world by doing something for yourself and then expanding the horizon. So Mukesh, before directly jumping into the details, can you give a brief about what is UiPath tool all about and where can we get it and what is it used for? Naveen already talked about the broad level usage of using it for desktop automation. Any other use cases that come to your mind?
Okay, so UiPath is a tool which is helping you to build the robots. So when I say robots, so many people confuse it with the walking and the talking robots like we see in the movies called Jarvis or the Iron Man, but these are the software robots. So when I say robots, these mean the software robots. So as in simple, if I tell you, UiPath is a technology that help us to build robots. This robot are called the software robots that work inside a computer and it automate the mundane and the repetitive task. For example, if you are an employee and who is daily doing the same stuff, for example, your daily job is to just go to a website, download some data, filter out the data, put something in the email and then send it the report. If you will see, this is same repetitive task an employee is doing on the daily basis. So how about the software robots do it for you? So that is where UiPath come in picture. So this is an RPA technology. Now the next question is where you can get it from. So the software is available for free at the uipath.com. You can always have a community edition and then you can utilize it to build your own software robots that would be working on your computer. So you can think the robot as an assistant who is working on your laptop and doing all the repetitive and mundane tasks for you.
That's quite interesting, Mukesh, and I can't wait to download the software myself. Now let's assume we are downloading the software. What are the components that we need to understand? Because typically, if you consider a software package, it comes up with so many different components and it might be difficult for us to understand. So can you elaborate more about the components that are part of UiPath?
Okay, so when we talk about the UiPath software, so as a beginner, the first thing you should understand is the UiPath Studio, the Orchestrator, and the Assistant. So these are the primary three components. You should understand that how exactly what are the three components and what are the uses and how are they working together. If you understand this thing, then you are good to go ahead with your automation journey.
Okay, maybe can you share a little bit about the UiPath Studio and explain this little more detail?
Okay, so for any of the programming language, not only robotics, but assuming that you are working for a Java or a C# or let's say any of the programming language, you require a canvas where you write the code or where you develop the logic. So when we talk about UiPath, the automation canvas provided is the UiPath Studio. So if I talk, the UiPath Studio is an automation canvas for developers and the business users to develop the bot. When I say business users, this UiPath Studio can be used by the business user to build the bots that require less coding and can be used by the developers that require intensive coding. So if you are a business user, then also you can use the UiPath Studio to code generic things such as downloading the emails, resetting your calendar, checking your calendar, sending the emails, sending automatic replies. So you can, if you are a business user and don't want much of the coding, you can always use the UiPath Studio to develop the bots. Next, what exactly UiPath Studio provides us? It has a set of activities and packages that are clubbed together to automate a task. For example, if you have to type something on the browser, so UiPath Studio will provide you an activity called type into. So you can just drag and drop that activity in the UiPath Studio. You just point it to the browser and you tell the robot that, okay, when I run this automation, you have to write something in the browser and you have to type here Mukesh. As simple as that. Now, once you have developed the code, the next thing is how do you debug the code. So even if you are coming from any of the programming background, once you write the code, the next thing is to debug and publish the code to a server. So in our case, the server or the central repository is the Orchestrator. We will talk about Orchestrator in a bit later. But as of now, just understand that UiPath Studio is the place where you can develop, debug, edit the code and then publish the code to the Orchestrator. Once you have developed the code, it is always a good practice to have the reusable code so that your team members can benefit. If you are working for a big organization and you want to create reusable components, this is the place where you create. And the last thing is the version maintenance. You don't want to lose your code. So if I write a code today, you don't want to lose it. So that's why UiPath Studio is integrated with Git, SVN and TFS, that is the version maintenance. So this is all about UiPath Studio. I hope that makes sense.
Absolutely. That makes perfect sense. So a bigger canvas to develop, to code, debug, publish in a reusable format with version control. Amazing. Right. So it covers all the process steps. So now let's jump to the next one. You talked about UiPath Assistant. So what is the use of that?
Okay, so if I tell you who is responsible for painting something on the screen, you will say, okay, I can do it with the help of paint. If I say you that you have to make a presentation, where you can make a presentation, you will say, okay, I can easily go and use the PowerPoint. Now, if I tell you who will execute the robot on the machine, there should be someone. Right? There should be some software, some exe who is responsible for running the automation in any computer, in your local computer or in a server machine or in the business user. So who is that guy? That guy is the UiPath Assistant. So UiPath Assistant in a simple statement is the guy who is responsible for running the robots on the machine. It is an application which allows you to manage and you can always set reminders for your processes. So if you want a process, assuming that you are a business user and you have set a process that you want to download the emails and you want to download it only at 3 p.m. So you can always set reminders and that process will run accordingly. Apart from the primary job of the UiPath Assistant is to connect the Orchestrator to start the jobs. Whenever there is some signal that is sent from the Orchestrator, this guy is responsible for triggering the job. And apart from that, you can always view, pause, start and stop or resume a job. So that is where UiPath Assistant come into picture.
For me, this is looking more like the Hinduism trilogy, right? The Trimurtis. There is someone who is creating it, there is someone who is the sustenance, there is someone who is taking care of the decommissioning of it, Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwar. So Mukesh, you also mentioned about UiPath Orchestrator. So can you dwell a little bit more into that?
Okay, so UiPath Orchestrator is a web application that enables you to orchestrate your UiPath robots in executing the repetitive business processes. Now, what do I mean by that? So we code a process in the help of UiPath Studio. Our automation is ready, and now I want to run the automation in not only in my machine, but I want to run it across all the machines which are available in my firm or for the business client. So I cannot always go and give the packet to everyone, each one of the computer, and then I tell, okay, you run this, then you run this, then you run this. So what we do, we deploy the package to Orchestrator. Now it's a web application where it is responsible for managing your entire robot fleet. So if I tell about Orchestrator, this is a web application that is responsible for managing the robots, managing the processes, and managing all your automation. So it's simple like that. You go to a web application, you can see, okay, today my 10 robots are running. Out of these 10 robots, 5 got success, 3 are in pending state, 1 got failed. So this Orchestrator is a web interface that can manage your entire robot fleet, right from creating of the robot to scheduling to the deployment to getting the logs, adding extra robots. Everything is controlled by the UiPath Orchestrator.
That's great, Mukesh. We spoke about the UiPath Studio, the UiPath Assistant, and the Orchestrator. So can you also explain how these three work together in tandem?
Okay, so now I hope you understand what exactly these are at a high level. So UiPath Studio is the automation canvas where you deploy something, you develop the code actually, you write the logic, all the business scenarios, you do the exception handling, everything you done in the UiPath Studio. Now this is the place you can compare this thing with your any of the code editor. You write the code there. Now once the code is written, what UiPath does, you have to publish this thing to Orchestrator. So why publishing this to Orchestrator? Because from Orchestrator we have to manage the entire robot fleet. So what happens whenever you publish a packet from UiPath Studio to Orchestrator, UiPath Studio will create packet which is called a nugget packet, that is NUPKG, that is the extension for that. So UiPath Studio will create a nugget package and the nugget packet will be sent to Orchestrator. Now in the Orchestrator the packet will be lying that only. How will the Orchestrator know that where should I run it? Which machine should I execute? Or which is the job, for what time I have to execute it. So for example, you might create an automation which is supposed to run on a weekly basis, but how would Orchestrator know? So as of now you have just developed the code and published it to the Orchestrator. Now let me talk about what happens inside the Orchestrator. In the Orchestrator, first of all, we divide the Orchestrator in the set of environments. So what is an environment? For example, every company has a set of departments, let's say finance, HR, or let's just talk about finance, HR only. So we have two departments, finance, HR. You don't want the finance processes and the robots to mix up with the other department robots, or you vice versa. So for that, first thing is we create environments in the Orchestrator. So that is a logical separation between the franchises or between the verticals. Now once the environments are created, the next thing what we do is we assign that nugget packet to the environment. We say that okay, this nugget packet is associated to this environment. This is a process of the finance department, so all the finance robot can execute it. So we assign that packet to the environment. That nugget packet in Orchestrator is called a process. So what happens is once the nugget is available in the Orchestrator, we tell Orchestrator, okay, so this is a packet, this is for the finance guy, so you have to execute this process in the finance machine. Okay, so Orchestrator will say, okay, why don't you create a process for that? So okay, I'll tell, okay, I'll create a process for it. Now I have created a process. Now the next thing it will ask, Orchestrator will ask me where exactly you want to run the process. So who will execute the process? So now when I say who will execute the process, the answer is UiPath Assistant. But where is the UiPath Assistant? It is on the machine. So I will tell that okay, this is the finance process, this is tied up to this finance environment, and for finance we have 3 robots. Out of these 3 robots you have to execute it only on the robot 1 and the robot 2. So that's how Orchestrator will create a single line of entity, it will say, okay, whenever a user come and trigger this process, I have to trigger this packet on the robot 1. If the user asks me to trigger it on robot 2, it will trigger on robot 2. Now, as a business user, you might not always want to go to the orchestrator and run the process on the daily basis. So if you want to have a process executing daily, you don't want to go always to the orchestrator and click on the create process, run process, run process, run process. Rather, what you want to do is you want to have a kind of schedule. So that is also possible with the help of orchestrator. We go in the orchestrator and we create a schedule. In the schedule, we specify that, okay, this is the process, this is the packet which we have got. We have to run this packet on every Tuesday at 12 a.m. So every Tuesday at 12 a.m. the business will be just working on his system, and at 12:05 or 12:10, whenever the process is getting executed, the business will get the output. So that is also possible with the help of UiPath Orchestrator. Now here the main thing comes is the separation of the robots. So you can't mix up. You can't say that, okay, my finance robot is there, let me execute it on the HR machine. So you can't do that because we have already separated that thing with the help of environments. So this happens entirely, this thing happens in the orchestrator. Now when you say you execute this robot, the UiPath orchestrator will ask me which is the assistant or which is the robot which I have to execute. So you have to specify the robot. So I specify that you have to execute in this robot 1. Now robot 1 will go to the assigned machine and it will execute in that machine. So that's how the studio, orchestrator and assistant work together as a single unit.
Amazing. Excellent conversation so far, Mukesh. I really appreciate the thoughts shared so far, and definitely it is going to help someone who is going to begin their journey in UiPath. So one last question for this session. So what will be your one piece of advice to those aspiring to make big in their career? Because we have seen you doing a lot of videos on YouTube and sharing your knowledge, and already you have built your own followership and started inspiring people. So definitely we would like to share your inputs with our audience as well.
Okay, so my one advice would be, so I am not in a very big position to give advice to folks, because I'm still a 7 years experience, but still whatever it is, I feel like so we should always get out of our comfort zone. So it's a human tendency that if something new comes to us, we always feel that, okay, I would not be able to do it, let it be, and let's not take this responsibility and let someone else do it. So that should not be the case. If anything is coming and it is not comfortable, go ahead and take that opportunity. Get out of the comfort zone. And the more you learn, the more you share, the more you broaden your area of expertise. So get out of the comfort zone, keep learning, and start sharing your skills.
You don't need to be in a bigger position to give suggestions. From everyone's perspective, we can provide our thoughts. And in that context, whomsoever wants to pick it up, they can definitely take that advice in that context. For our audience on YouTube, you will get to know the overall flow diagram of the 3 components in UiPath that was mentioned by Mukesh in the video. So Mukesh, thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate you taking time for us today. It was great talking to you about the overall UiPath journey, the 3 key components, and it was an amazing conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Dear listeners, to know more about our speaker and the content, refer to the show notes and visit or follow us on social media. We are available on LinkedIn, Facebook, Insta, Twitter, Pinterest, and also on YouTube. Just search for The Guiding Voice and then follow, like, subscribe to us, and also share within your network. In addition, please feel free to email us at The Guiding Voice for You. That is TheGuidingVoice 4 as a digit, U as a letter at gmail.com, or WhatsApp us on India number 9494587187. That is India number 9494587187, and we will be happy to collaborate with you.
Hey Sudhakar, can you talk about the exciting opportunity of featuring our audience on this show?
Sure, Naveen. So guys, of late, we have been receiving a lot of career guidance related questions from our regular listeners through YouTube, LinkedIn comments, WhatsApp, and email. And we are responding to them on one-on-one basis. Now, we are pleased to open up a new mode of interacting with you all while providing a chance to broadcast yourself. If you have any questions related to education, career guidance, or a specific IT function, just send your voice message through speakpipe.com/theguidingvoice. we will play your question in your own voice along with the answer either from us or our expert panel in our future episodes. Hope you will utilize this wonderful opportunity.
All right, so it brings us to the trivia segment of today's episode. And today's trivia is about Google, the most popular search engine. You know, folks, I'm sure you'll be surprised if I mention about this. Google was up for sale in 1999. Yes, you heard it right. Larry Page wanted to sell Google to Excite, a company named Excite, in 1999. And the deal was stuck around $750,000 and 1% of Excite. But then the deal fell apart, and today Google's market capitalization is over $700 billion. So you can imagine, in case if Larry Page would have sold it, we would have not seen this many advancements in the technology space, and definitely people would have regretted for that.
So in 99 context, it was worth $750,000, a small company for Excite. In the current context, after 22 years, it is like $700 billion. So I was talking about the context.
Interesting, isn't it? Thank you for listening. There is more in store, folks. Stay tuned. Take care. Be safe. Until next time. Bye-bye. And we are signing off.